Welcome to Metrocasting. I'm Doug Farley. After 12 years of fundraising, after 12 years of wishing and hoping, after 12 years of planning, Stuie, one of the over 15,000 M3A1 Stewart Light Tanks built in Berwick during World War II, has come home. Excitement was in the air in late March 2016 as the door to a shipping container was opened. Inside was Stuie, whom after nearly 75 years of being away at war, helping to defend the people of Brazil, resting for many years on a Brazilian plantation, and more recently, waiting to be purchased from a dealer in England, has finally come home. Onlookers waited patiently as crews from Cheetah Chassis, which operates out of the old ACF plant where this Stuie was made, worked to drag the tank out into the open air for all to see. As committee member and one of the driving forces behind finding and bringing Stuie home, Dave Kovac placed a welcome home sign on the tank. The audience on hand broke into applause. Happy doesn't begin to express the committee's feelings at having Stuie back home.
You can barely contain yourself, can you, Dave?
Oh my, I don't think it's really settled in yet, but it's here, and he's not going away again. He's not just a visitor, he's staying here. And I talked about the little story about the history of how it got here, but it's obviously all about the World War II veterans that fought and made it possible for us to be here to do this. There's so many people that we want to thank that's helped us so far along the way. Lots of donators, big, little, in-kind donations, right up to the fellow John that brought the tank in the container here from the port of New York, and he donated his services. How great is that? And it's all about Berwick and the 177 communities that fed into here, that had employees here. It's all about them, and we can't thank everybody enough for all they've done. And one of these days we're going to work on it and get her all shined up and make her pretty, and you'll be able to come and visit with her, and it's going to be it's a great day in Berwick, Pennsylvania.
It's just amazing. I really wasn't sure that this day would ever happen, and here it is. Three years to the day from when we brought a tank in for the bicentennial, had Fred Shepperly ride it in the parade in Bloomsburg. And now we've got one here that is here because of Fred's inspiration and because of Fred being our largest contributor, cash-wise. And his son Craig is serving on the committee with us and bringing us forward. And it's just amazing that we've got this tank home. We got a Berwick-built Stewart tank home on a Berwick-built Cheetah chassis. That was a chassis that was built the same complex the tank was built. And now it's just a matter of raising enough money to clean it up, to do the memorial park, and the big hope is that we'll raise enough money to actually put up a museum building. But that's a little bit down the road, but it's just amazing we were able to raise. We actually raised over $150,000 when you figure expenses and everything else. And the Marine Corps League was a big help in making that happen. And then the borough coming through with their name on the paperwork made it really helped get it through the ATF and the State Department, and we got help from Senator Bob Casey and from Congressman Barletta's office and Representative Millard as well, and helped us out with all this. So there's so many people to thank, but I'm just amazed.
Following the initial return to Berwick of this particular Stewart Light Tank, a welcome home parade and ceremony was held a few days later so the general public could get an up-close look at what their donations had helped to achieve. A ramp was built to allow everyone to get up onto the temporary transportation trailer for pictures and remembrances. Inside the Reliance Fire Hall, memorabilia collected over the last 12 years was put on display along with the plans for the Stuie Memorial Site, which is in the works. One of the pictures was of Stewart Committee member Dave Kovac's family, many of whom had worked at the ACF plant.
Absolutely. I have a personal involvement here with my family. The one fellow there is my father. My father and his 8 brothers and my grandfather Kovac, after the war, all worked at the plant It was so unusual that they brought him up to the front office, took that picture and wrote the article down below and put it in a magazine that the ACF had called Rolling Stock. Oh, it was pretty neat. During the war, 5 of those sons were in the war, in World War II, and then when they came back, they all worked there. That's how big the ACF was. They had switched over from making tanks to back to railway cars and other big industrial things.
So being able to bring Stuie home for all to enjoy was more of a personal experience for Dave and for many of the others on the committee. Also in attendance at the ceremony were World War II veterans, as well as former ACF workers and or their families who came by to see how their craftsmanship had held up over the years. And according to Stewart Committee maintenance member Scott Coslett, this particular Stuie was in pretty decent shape.
Well, the tank is in pretty good condition, but it's not in great condition. So anybody that sees the tank, you'll notice there's a lot of rust on the outside. Most of that is purely cosmetic. There are some fittings and different things that need to be made. The person that we bought the tank from over in England has indicated he has had it running, and by first looking over it, it looks like it should be relatively easy to get it running, although there are some mechanical things that we need to work out. It looks like the clutch is frozen, so that would need to be freed up. But for the most part, it looks like it's in relatively good condition, but just needs to be restored.
So what makes you want to be part of this committee?
Well, certainly I'm from Berwick. I was born and raised in Berwick. Had a lot of family members, especially my wife's grandfather actually worked in the ACNF while they were building tanks. I had just a general interest in local history and have a mechanical aptitude. I enjoy working on things, so it's just part of bringing a piece of Berwick, back home again.
Speaking of a piece of Berwick, that model behind you, you actually built that.
I did. That's a model of the very last tank that was made here in Berwick. That's a M5A1 tank. It's a model of the 15,244th tank. Last tank made in Berwick.
The last question is how cool is it to have Stuie back home?
Oh, it's tremendous. One thing about Berwick, in just the last few years, we're on the cusp of having the pool, Burvon Pool, renovated. The boulevard has been rebuilt and reborn. There's a group that's working on the movie theater, and obviously we've got a tank now back in Berwick. So it's a great time to be in Berwick.
Al Everett is a World War II veteran who was nearly speechless at seeing the tank.
I went into service right after Pearl Harbor, and I didn't get to see the tank being built.
But now you do.
Yeah, right, I do. It makes me feel good. Brings back a lot of good memories.
Now, after that initial welcome home parade and ceremony in early April 2016, Stuie kind of went into hiding so the maintenance crews could get to work on him and so Cheetah Chassis could finish making a unique trailer for Stuie to be hauled around on during special events and parades. The trailer was finally finished in late June 2016, and the Cheetah Chassis volunteers who helped build it on weekends and in their spare time made their way onto the trailer and surrounded or climbed up on Stuie for a photo op at the site where the permanent Stewart Light Tank Memorial and Display will one day go. That's at the entrance to the old ACF plant on 3rd Street in Berwick. Gary Hartman is the president of Cheetah Chassis, and he told us his suppliers and his workers were the reason the trailer got built. You donated this, right? Pretty much, except for a penny?
We charged a penny for the trailer. It was most of the materials were donated by our suppliers. About $7,000 to $8,000 worth of parts were donated by the suppliers, and we've had about 41 or 42 Cheetah volunteers volunteer their time to come in on Fridays and after their shifts to build and assemble the trailer. So and Cheetah kicked in some of the labor and the rest of the parts needed to get the committee a trailer to pull Stuie around.
Why did you guys want to help out with this?
We knew that the committee spent a lot of time and money to get the trailer here to Berwick and get it back home. We also knew that they were running low on funds and they needed a way to get it around town and to other towns to get it in parades and to raise more money so they can get it totally refurbished. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to help the committee out to finish the project.
What is it like to actually be manufacturing in the place where they made these tanks?
It's very good. I mean, we've been here since 1972, and the buildings are old, but they serve the purpose well, and the workforce in the area is really great. So it's a good place to have a business.
Dave Roberts was one of the guys who actually worked on the trailer. What's it like to work on something so historical?
It's pretty cool to see come back here to where it was actually started out from. Everybody helped. It was pretty neat to have everybody working on something that was just for the town.
I understand a lot of the hours were volunteer hours.
They were, yeah. We had about probably 10, 12 welders there, and there's a bunch of assemblers working on it to put it together at the last minute.
Would you kind of call this a labor of love?
Yeah. Usually you don't find a lot of welders, a lot of volunteers, but everybody come together to do it.
Plans are to haul Stuie around on that trailer in an effort to continue raising funds for his restoration and to help build the memorial. Now, the surprise for those in attendance at the trailer unveiling was that maintenance crews, over the last 3 months since that initial welcome home parade, had actually been able to get the motor running on this Stuie. And the Stewart Tank Committee fired Stuie up for the crowd. And an even bigger surprise was the announcement that the maintenance crews had even been able to get Stuie's gears to work, and that they actually drove him up onto that new trailer the night before. A moment caught on camera by volunteer Deb Lutz.
It was amazing. It was also amazing watching Kovac's face because he didn't know it was going to start. But then when it got up and it started onto the ramp, and then it came back down because it didn't have enough oomph, so he backed it up, and then it went right up on there. It was great.
In the video, you can see County Commissioner and Stewart Tank Committee member Dave Kovac excitedly calling and telling other committee members about Stuie's engine running and the tank actually being able to be driven. Scott Coslett told us what it took to make that happen.
Actually, given the age of the tank, it really wasn't that bad. When we first got the tank out to Don's garage, we had not really an issue, but we thought the tank was in neutral. To make a long story short, we thought the tank was in neutral and ended up being in gear. So we took the starter off and went through the starter, put the starter back on, and at that point realized the tank was in gear. So we got it in neutral that same day and rigged up a fuel system. You can see there's a jerry can, we call it, on the back of the tank. Rigged that up, hooked the battery up, and believe it or not, in probably 15, 20 minutes, it started to cough and push out a little smoke, and we thought, boy, this thing's going to fire here. So we tinkered a little bit, within another 5 minutes it was running.
How long had it been since it had been running? Do you know?
Well, at least a couple of years. I mean 5, 8 years, something like that. The fellow that had the tank before we got it apparently tried to get it running right after he got it, so that would have been like 2008, maybe 2006, 2008. So it's been all of 5, 8 years since it had been running. I liked it.
As far as getting it to move and stuff like that, was that tough? Were things frozen?
Yes, the front of the tank, there's a door where the driver gets in, and we got the tank. The door was actually open and was actually rusted open. So that kind of told me it had been sitting in the weather for years, and the pedals were completely rusted solid. So once we got the motor to run, the next thing was to free up the pedals, which we did, and the tank was frozen in gear. We had to get it out of gear. But then once we got everything lubricated, and we had return springs to replace and all those sorts of things. Once we got all that and felt comfortable, we decided the next step was to see if we could get it moving. It's movable enough that we can, back it up and we can get it on the trailer. And if there's not, of course, safety would be our first concern. The last thing we would want to do is be in a parade and something break and not be able to stop, or be on a hill and not be able to stop, and that sort of thing. So until we get it all figured out, we're just kind of limited to loading it on the trailer.
Back at the trailer unveiling, Dave Kovac reflected on how everything had come together so quickly after having taken so long.
Well, you saw it running today. The maintenance committee, in a fairly short period of time, considering that the tank's been sitting doing nothing out in the field for many, many years, got it running. It still needs a lot of work, So they're going to continue to work on it. The ultimate goal is to make it parade ready. I don't know when that'll be. Obviously, we have enough irons in the fire. We still need donations. We certainly appreciate them because we want to restore the tank, get it up to what it looked like back when it was made. Here at our site, we have a lot of work to do to prepare our memorial site. And the latest phase that we've added is at some point we would like to build a museum. There's a possibility that we can get another Berwick-made Stewart tank that we just recently found out about. One step at a time. We now have a way to haul Stuie. We're pretty excited about that. It's been a 12-year journey now, and we've really come a long way in the last 3 years. So I want to thank all the members of the Stewart Tank Memorial Association. Today we were thanking Cheetah Chassis and all their employees that made this possible, thanking them profusely. We can't thank them enough. To the community that has really come out. It's their history, and they just, the common denominator here is everybody knows somebody that worked at the plant or worked at the plant and then was drafted and fought in the war. So and ultimately that's our goal, is to honor all the World War II veterans and all the people that worked at the Berwick ACF plant. It was such a big part of the war effort.
And because of what they have been able to do, find and bring a Berwick-made Stewart Light Tank home, finding volunteers to help out with fundraising and other duties now has become much, much easier.
So there are more and more events coming up here. How tough are these things to put together for you?
I've actually been doing it for almost 5 years now, so the first one was difficult, but now it just rolls. I was actually surprised compared to the first World War II event that I ever ran. I felt like I was constantly asking people for help, and now people are just wondering how they can get involved and how they're able to help with the Stewart Tank Association, help with the tank, help set up camps, and it's really great.
And so Stuie is finally home, but more work needs to be done. Donations are needed for restoration and memorial construction purposes, and you are invited to go to the Stewart Tank Committee website at bringstuiehome.org and make a donation. Also, watch for Stuie to be on display at events or in parades for years to come, initially as a fundraising opportunity, but eventually as a source of pride in honor and memory of everyone who worked on or served in a Berwick-made Stewart Light Tank.